What is going on, everybody? My name is Michael Levan. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you're wondering what this is on my forehead, because I'm sure everybody's staring at it, yes, it's a pimple I have broken out for the first time, probably since high school. Just wanted to point it out because I feel like everybody's going to be staring at it throughout this entire video, and I want everybody to be able to stay on the topic here instead of just looking at the big thing on my forehead. But I did wear a red shirt today, that way it matches. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the content. Today we are going to be talking about 5 tips that you need for your DevOps engineer interview. Now, a lot of these tips might not be what you're expecting, but let's start off with number 1, probably the biggest one you aren't expecting. Don't be yourself. Everybody tells you when you go to an interview, just be yourself. Well, here's the reality of just life and what we do in general, right? We always have different personas. Let's say if you have a girlfriend or if you have a wife or if you have a boyfriend, you have a different persona with them. You act differently with them than you would with your mom or your dad. So because of that, really what you need to do is you need to set up your persona, your work persona. And that persona of, again, it's not being fake, it's not being different, it's not being anything. Everybody has a different persona for different situations. So when you're going into that interview, probably don't be the same guy as you are when you're out with your friends at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? You want to be a little bit more professional. You want to go in, you want to be confident, you want to sit up straight, and you overall just want to be professional, so you don't want to just be yourself. You want to actually set up a persona of what you want to portray to your future employer. The next thing is don't lie about what you know and what you don't know, and better yet, don't overinflate. If you've played around with Kubernetes for a whole 3 minutes of your entire life, don't go into an interview and tell everybody you're a Kubernetes expert and begin to talk about those things that you did in those 3 minutes. And I'll tell you why. There is like a point where you have to like kind of oversell yourself a bit, right? Because you are competing with a bunch of different people, but you don't want to overinflate what you know, because what's going to happen 10 times out of 10, you're going to overinflate it. They might not catch that you've overinflated it, and if they didn't, that means you sold yourself really well. You go into the job and they're like, oh, this isn't what we paid for, right? And then you might get laid off, or you might get a demotion, or something like that. Now, the next thing is the third thing. Don't go into a rant about when you're explaining situations. Now, you want to be able to explain situations like what you've worked on, all that stuff, but you don't want to go on a rant. So just keep it technical enough that it's, how can I put it? Keep it technical enough that it makes sense and it shows your technical abilities, but don't like go completely down the rabbit hole for an hour. Now, you're going to have to kind of figure out, depending on your situations, how you can ultimately do that. So I'll give you guys an example. Several jobs ago, I built an orchestrator essentially for a application that we were turning into a microservice. So, we built it in Docker, we built it with Kubernetes, we had some Ansible in there, we had some Python code in there. And ultimately what we did was, we took the deployment down from an hour and a half to about 33 seconds. Very, very cool. The thing is that I'm not going to go into heavy technical detail about the code, what functions I used, what library I use, etc. So I would say, maybe one of my situations, if they said, what was the coolest thing you did? I would say, well, I actually took an application deployment down from an hour and a half to 33 seconds. Now, as you can see, that kind of sells it right there. I'm drawing them in, and then they're like, oh, wait. And I'm like, yeah, so, what we had a whole bunch of Java binaries running on a couple virtual machines, and instead we wanted to Dockerize them. We wanted to orchestrate them with Kubernetes, and then we did all of the automation on the back end with Python. Boom. Decent enough example, decent enough explanation. I let them know what I was doing on the back end, what I was doing on the front end, how I was orchestrating everything, all of that. And they might ask you, hey, can you go into more detail? And then, yeah, absolutely, go into more detail. But you don't want to start off with, yeah, and I use this library and this SDK, because everybody's going to be like, wait, what? And you might not even be talking to people in your interview that actually know about that. But if you tell somebody, yeah, I took a deployment down from an hour and a half to 33 seconds, they're going to be like, oh, everybody's going to be able to understand that, and everybody's going to be able to enjoy that. And then if somebody's technical, they might ask you to go into more detail. Now, number 4 here, I always tell everybody, have 3 situations prepared. 9 times out of 10, when you're going through your interview, you're going to get asked standard questions of like, what challenges have you faced, or what was one of the coolest things you've done at work, or, what was the biggest project that you've done, something like that. And you always want to have 3 situations prepared. Now, keep in mind, these 3 things don't have to be like insane. They don't have to be anything crazy. They really just have to be, number 1, something that portrays your skills, and number 2, something that you really enjoyed. And the reason why I say something that you really enjoyed is because that energy of you portraying, wow, this was really awesome, and let me tell you why, that's going to come out in the interview. And the person interviewing you will be able to say, wow, this person really enjoyed, what they did. That's awesome. Great. This is exactly who we want. Now, you want to make sure that you have 3 of those situations in your head. The 5th thing is, if you know somebody at the company for a reference, that's phenomenal. Now, it's not always the case. However, we are kind of in this weird digital world here, especially with everything going on in the world and everything being remote, that we all kind of talk in one way or another. So maybe you're talking to somebody on Twitter or on LinkedIn or another social platform, and you notice that like they work at this company that you're about to interview at. You could reach out to them, if you've had a conversation with them. I don't know if I would recommend reaching out like if you've never spoken to them before, but if you've had like a, hey, what's up, man? Oh yeah, no, this was awesome. Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Small conversation like that. Yeah, reach out, be like, hey, how's it going? I was wondering if maybe I could get, a good word or something from you. I'm actually interviewing for X position at your company, and it would, obviously go a long way, as you know, because of word of mouth. If you could put in a good word for me, based on everything that you see that I'm doing online, and if it's a blog, if it's a video, YouTube course, whatever, if they can see something that you're doing, that you're providing value over the internet, they're going to be like, yeah, well, I could, I could give you a good word here. So with that being said, those are the 5 things that I would highly recommend. So let's just go over them really quick. Number 1, don't be yourself. Number 2, don't lie about what you know and what you don't know. Don't overinflate it. Number 3, explain situations in a technical fashion, but at the same time, keep it high level. Number 4, have 3 situations that you can explain throughout, what you've done in your career and what you found exciting. And number 5, attempt to know somebody as a reference at the job. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope this helped. Reach out to me. Let me know if it did help. Let me know if I can answer any other questions. Put them in the comments. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe for this awesome content. Yes, I'm inflating myself. Take care, everybody.